AFA Today.
AFR Talk.
I will stumble, I will fall down, but I will not be moved. I will make
It's AFA Today on AFR Talk. Kevin McCullough, glad you're with us from our studios just inside the shadow of the Freedom Tower and in the corner of Broadway and Wall Street is really where we're at. We've got some breaking news that is taking place in Europe. It is kind of dominating the news cycle. And I want to get to a story that Russia and China are both mentioned in. This is from Sky News in Britain today. But Russia is stating that China has been largely in agreement over what has happened in the Ukraine after other world powers condemned Moscow for sending troops into that country. Hundreds of Russian soldiers have surrounded a military base in Crimea, which is just a small region of the Ukraine, but it is one that has a large number of Russian speakers in it, preventing Ukrainian soldiers from going in or out. The convoy blockading the site near the Crimean capital includes at least 17 military vehicles. Russian troops are reported to have taken control of a ferry terminal in the city on the eastern tip of Crimea, which is a majority Russian-speaking population. Ukraine's defense ministry said 2 Russian fighter jets violated the country's airspace in the Black Sea on Sunday night and that it had scrambled an interceptor aircraft to prevent provocative actions. Reporters claim pro-Russian protesters had occupied a floor of the regional government building in Donetsk. The 11-story building had been flying the Russian flag for the last 3 days. Ukrainian Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk has insisted his country will never give up to anyone and urged Russia to withdraw their forces. He said, I am a supporter of a diplomatic solution to the crisis as a conflict would destroy the foundations for stability in the whole region. If you're not following this carefully, what has happened is that there was a very pro-Russian government that was in Ukraine. The Ukrainian citizens, the people there, very flustered by some of the decisions it had made in recent days, and decided to hold the feet to the fire, so to speak, for the government. The government began to clamp down and actually killed about 100 protesters. At that point in time, it ratcheted up the protest instead of stifling it. And as the president then scattered, got out of there. There was the reality that he might be held on war criminal charges, and so there was this desire to try to get him by the Ukrainian people that came into leadership after that. The Russians were actually helping hide him, and because he was so pro-Russia in his policies, it appears as though the alliance he has with Mr. Putin is very strong, and now it appears that in the Kiev region of the Ukraine, there is a lot of military buildup on the Russian side of the map. 220,000 forces possible, as many as 880 tanks, and some 210 jets that could be utilized if there was a take-back of the Ukraine region. So this is going on, and what's interesting about this, and I spoke about this on Saturday night on a broadcast that I do. It appears to me as though what you have here is you have, well, to be candid, you have a president on our side that seems to be utterly clueless as to what he should do in response. You have a president who is not really. I mean, he's said don't do anything, don't invade, don't do this, and Putin has said, well, why should I be concerned about what you have to say about it? You don't seem to have kept any threat of fear of people taking action in Syria or Iran or other places. He's just basically called his bluff, and I guess all of this would be disturbing enough if it was just relegated to the Crimea region and innocent people were in harm's way and there was the potential for this to really get ugly. However, there's also a warship about 200 miles off of the U.S. shores down near Cuba. And its very presence there representing something that is disturbing from the viewpoint of this, that what you see is a symbol of the newly constituted Russian Federation headed by a former KGB agent that is increasingly now trying to take back territories of the old Soviet empire. In fact, it was Sarah Palin who back in 2008, during the first election cycle for President Obama, who made reference to the fact that if Putin didn't have any problem annexing Georgia, that because Ukraine is kind of the breadbasket of that region where they can produce a lot, they can farm a lot. There's a lot of natural benefit of that region. Kind of think of our Midwestern states and how much wheat we grow and so forth in that area. That because of that, she wouldn't be surprised if he tried to, at some point in time, annex the Ukraine. And as long as you have very pro-Russian leaders leading Ukraine, then it doesn't really matter, because they are going to give you advantages, they're going to make things easy for you, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the people that desire the independence, they're creating the problem. They don't want to be under the boot of Moscow, and so that was why they threw out the last guy, and that's why that's on some level why they are asking the West and other places for help now. Now the question becomes, and I'm not at all in favor of just going to endless wars. I don't like that at all. But I'm curious, as you sit here and as you understand what is going on in the world around you, and we do very little because a lot of this wasn't reported over the weekend. America is pretty insulated. We like being insulated. We like not knowing the real truth of what's going on. Is there something that you feel like we should be doing that is not being done? Now, on Saturday morning, the White House called together its national security team, and they wanted to do a briefing. Everybody was there except the man that can actually do anything out of that briefing, which was President Obama. We don't know what he was doing. We don't know what was more important than being there at that time for those purposes. We don't have any clue. What we do know is that he would normally be expected to attend, and he wasn't there. What we do know is that he would normally be expected to have an opinion about a former hostile country like Russia or the Soviet Union trying to reconstitute itself, trying to exercise power, particularly over a democratically oriented republic that has been freed since the Cold War was over. Now, I'm sure there's bad guys on all sides in this matter. I don't know any of the personalities involved. But if Russia begins to assimilate countries around it, we saw in World War II that's exactly what Germany did. They just went through countries and took them. What does that say to you? 888-589-8840. What does it say to you that the president didn't show for his mandated? I would think he's required to be at the national security briefing. I mean, he's the only one that can give the order. So why wouldn't he be at his own national security briefing on the morning that this was all going down? To me, that seems kind of uberly senseless, impossibly irresponsible that he's not at that meeting. And now we have a Russian warship 200 miles off of our coast. 888-589-8840. I wonder what any of that means to you. 888-589-8840. But that is without question the top story of the day. And Sky News, again, reporting that Russia is saying that China is in full agreement with them. So now you have two of the three remaining superpowers on the planet that are aligned against the United States. How do you feel about that? 888-589-8840. We can chat about that and be more than happy to. Let's see what Frank in Kentucky wanted to weigh in on, though. He wants to talk about Israel. Frank, welcome. You're on with Calvin McCullough. Hi.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure thing.
The reason I'm calling, you were speaking about the websites that pray for other people on
right.
on the web.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know I was listening to the radio yesterday on the American Family Radio, and they were talking about pray for the Israel, and I thought you wouldn't mind adding that up there as well.
Sure, and anybody that wants to pray for any item and the items that they need prayer for, it's really designed to be a little bit more personal for your own personal requests. But if you have a burden for Israel, put that in there and explain why. And then when people come, they can see 2 or 3 of those requests, pray for them, and then move on from there. 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840. Let's go to Benny calling from Mississippi. Hey, Benny, welcome. You're on with Kevin McCullough. Glad you're with us.
Thank you. Listen, on this issue about President Obama not being there, I believe this president is out to destroy America. If you look at all the decisions that he makes, economical and the gay agenda as far as same-sex marriage and everything, I think his Muslim roots, even though he calls himself a Christian, we all know no Christian could be for killing babies, aborting the babies as he is, and for same-sex marriage. There's just no Christian that can do that, not if you truly believe in the Lord. And so for him not getting involved either, he's scared, don't know what to say or anything, or he's truly out to destroy us before he gets out of office and take us down financially as well. That's my feelings.
All right, Benny, appreciate your weighing in on this. 888-589-8840. Russia is reconstituting. They have, assimilated Georgia. They've moved troops into the Crimea region, the Kiev region of the Ukraine. They have a warship off our coast, just 200 miles off of Florida. Does any of this matter? The president's response on Saturday was, "I'm not going to go to the national security briefing that was called special on Saturday morning just for this." And here's kind of the kick to the gut for me. All the news reports said, well, he was later updated by Dr. Susan Rice. Dr. Rice, the same Dr. Rice who told the American people on 5 different news shows on the Sunday morning news show circuit that Benghazi was started by a spontaneous reaction to a video that nobody in Libya had even seen. 888-589-8840. That was the person that updated the president on the national security meeting that was held, and he did not attend. Let's go to Texas and speak with Kenny. Hi, Kenny. Welcome. You're on with Kevin McCullough. Glad you're here.
Hey, Kevin. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, man,
Sure
this is what I'm thinking about this. I'm a former Marine. I had 2 sons serving the Marine Corps, so I'm really paying attention to the military, what he's doing, what the administration's cutting back, and they're, he's very disrespectful to any, he's relieved so many of the conservative military personnel that was, in his cabinet. A lot of them are gone now, and he was so disrespectful to the Prime Minister of Israel when he was coming, Benjamin Netanyahu. He dissed him while he was there, and I really believe. Listen, I've been listening to Fortress of Faith on Saturday, and I'm gonna tell you what, I've learned a lot from those guys, and I had no idea that of his Muslim background, his brothers are Hamas. They're what's that? I can't even think of it now. The Brotherhood.
The Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah, they're all in it. His grandmother over there in Africa, she's in it. They got 501c for their programs, and I really believe that it's part of his his taking down of America. It's the Muslims have infiltrated. They're in his cabinet. They were in Bush's cabinet. And they're teaching.
Well, Kenny, I've covered. I'm sorry you haven't heard that on my show because I've covered a lot of that in the past. Our government is fairly well infiltrated with people that are either sympathetic to or members of the Muslim Brotherhood themselves. Thanks for those observations. 888-589-8840. The president did not go to his national security briefing on Saturday that deals with should America have a response to the Ukraine? Should America have a response? I was driving yesterday here in the city. I saw a bumper sticker on a car right in front of myself as we were driving, and it said, it had an Obama-Biden sticker from, I think, 2012 on one part of the bumper. And then right in front of me, it said, "I'm already against the next war." Putin probably feels like he has a very upper hand here because there may not be any sense that he's going to get any type of pushback from anyone about it. He may feel like as though he's really got a clean slate to go do what he wants to do here. What do you think? 888-589-8840. Mike is calling from Mississippi. Hey, Mike, welcome. You're on with Kevin McCullough. Hi.
Hey, thanks, Kevin, for taking my call.
Sure.
What concerns me that's not been brought up is, let's go back before he was reelected, when he was with Putin and he was caught off mic. He probably already knows what's going to happen.
He wasn't with Putin. He was with Medvedev. But Medvedev said, "I will make sure that Putin understands your sentiments." And what he basically said was, after I get reelected, I'll have a lot more flexibility. Now, you're obviously drawing attention to that, Mike. What do you think his intentions were in saying that?
Well, I've dealt with a little bit of military intelligence, and maybe he's just going to say he's not going to do anything. Maybe he's going to let Russia do what they want.
And how do you think that works out for the U.S. at the end of the day?
Well, it creates a lot of disconcern here to where he can do what he wants and create his own socialistic state here.
Well, I don't know if letting Russia do that does that, but it's interesting to hear what people think. 888-589-8840. More on AFA Today, on AFR Talk with Kevin McCullough. When we continue, stay with us.